I was a kid, they had put this cap. It was almost like a metallic type of a yarmulke on my head. And immediately monitors came out of a wall out of nowhere, and I started being shown scenes of lifetimes. And this information was coming out of my own head, even though I consciously had no idea or a way to even tap into it. But I knew it was me. I mean, I was emotionally involved with every scene that I saw, and I knew that it was me. And, you know, that's not something that I can explain to people. You either just know or you don't. Well, I knew that was me. And from that moment on, I had a different perspective of life. Because having been born and raised a Catholic, you know, as an altar boy, you know, here, you know, what they teach you is that you're given this one life to get it right. And if you don't get it right and you make a mistake, you know, even though he's a loving and forgiving God, he's going to throw you into a fiery abyss for the rest of eternity. That's insanity. It's insanity. I mean, why would anybody believe that? Number one, okay? Number two, obviously that's not a loving and forgiving God. Okay, so it's, you know, in my mind, you know, being a kid, it was a lie. I just knew it was a lie. And reincarnation is not new. That many of the different cultures have talked about it. And in order to mature the soul, you would need more than one lifetime. I mean, you know, what do we live on average on this earth? Most people. 45, 50 years for the average. In the United States, it's 72, I think, 73. But outside the country, it's a lot less. And that's it. That's your window. Please, you know. So, you know, everybody has their own perspective on it, and absolutely everyone is entitled to their own perspective on it. I know that reincarnation is a fact, and I'm encouraged by the fact that it is a fact, that we get multiple lifetimes to figure things out, to learn it all, to learn specific lessons. My relationship with the Andromedans have been primarily with two beings. A very old gentleman, a sage. His skin has gone pale because of his age. His name was Vissaeus. They don't really use names, they use symbols, but for the benefit of me, because of our culture and how we like to label things on the planet, his tone, his frequency, his symbol would equate to the word Vissaeus. So he was Vissaeus. Vissaeus was about 4 foot 11, 4 foot 9 tall. Very old. In our years, he was 4,300 years old. So he was like a Yoda, but very stiff, you know, very stiff. Moronae, on the other hand, is 2,300 years old. He was very young, very strong. He's 7 foot tall, 400 pounds, and he's just perfect. He's loosened up. He's learned to talk. He has a sense of humor. Many of them do, but because they're telepathic, you don't actually hear the jokes. Okay. And you know, and I was very self-conscious in the beginning because sometimes they would look and then they would smile and kind of giggle, and you know they're talking about you, but you just don't know what it is. You know, you can't even eavesdrop. So it's been an extremely interesting experience. I love them. I absolutely love them. They are my brothers. They are my family. And the Andromedan people love us because genetically they're connected to us. And they have been extremely worried about us for a long time. 1964, I was living in Illinois, which is in the center of the United States, and each summer it was tradition to go up to the upper northern peninsula of Michigan for a family gathering and picnic. It was like the end of the summer, and all the ants and the uggles would fly out, and we would all go up there, and we would just have a blast for a week, and we would stay at my grandpa's cabin. This was in August of 1964, which we did. We went up there, and as we were having fun. On one particular day, we decided to go out into the fields and play hide and go seek. And there was a lot of tall grass, and there was a lot of trees and chestnut trees and apple trees and the such. So there was a lot of insects and bees buzzing about. And the parents were all talking and telling stories about my grandpa and my grandma and, you know, doing the things that they do. So we all went out into the fields to play. Well, I found a very good spot to hide, and, you know, I moved some apples and some chestnuts, and I laid down in the grass, and I was hiding, you know, and the grass was high. Unless you walked on top of me, you wouldn't see me. Well, when I woke up, it was close to dusk, and this was early afternoon. What had happened to me was that as I had fallen asleep, I woke up, and I was on a table. It was in a very lit room, warmly lit room. It wasn't very bright. In fact, this is actually brighter than the room was. And it was very warm, temperature-wise. And as I'm lying on this table, I'm still fully clothed. There is a man on one side of me, a very short man with very pale skin. He was obviously very old. And a very tall man, very young, light blue skin, who was 7 foot tall and physically perfect, just like that. All I can tell you is that I had absolute instant recognition of who these two men were. There was no fear. I instantly loved them, like I knew them. And I know that you've all had experiences, even in this life, where you've met someone and you know them. You just know. There's an instant kinship. And that's because you've known them before in other lifetimes. And on some level, our souls recognize that, even though consciously we try to figure something else out. But that's what it is. And that's exactly what it is in this case. The reason that they've come to visit me is that genetically, my lineage of my family goes to them. And the story that they told me was that over 62,000 years ago, I was here and part of an outpost. And I got involved in a skirmish. I tried to break up an argument between two other visiting races, and I was killed. My body was terminated, which has put me into the Earth's reincarnational cycle. Now, after I learned that, the smaller man, now they don't have names, they have symbols and tones. But because here on Earth, we are stuck with labeling everything and having to have a label for everything, they have accommodated me by giving me names that they feel in our Earth tongue would somehow be close or would generate to the feeling of their name in Andromeda. The smaller one's name is Vissaeus. He was at the time over 4,300 years old when we met for the first time, or again. The other is Moronae. And Moronae is 1,700 and something years old in our Earth time. Okay? Vissaeus has been and is or was considered a great sage in his world because of his years and because of his knowledge and his experience. Okay? I say was because he's crossed over. He's left that body, and I don't know if he's reincarnated again into another yet. I'll keep you posted. Vissaeus walked over and got this little cap. Now, in the Hebrew world, the Jewish world, in Israel, it would be called a yarmulke. Except this was a metallic, type of a metallic, it almost looked like a tin foil, okay? But it had a hole on the top, and it fit very comfortably on my head. Well, the moment they put it on my head, they lifted me up on the table. Along the wall of the room we were in, monitors of just literally instantaneously appeared off the walls. Now, they weren't there before,
Okay, no doors opened, the wall didn't part, they just suddenly appeared. And on these monitors, and there were many of them, were scenes of lifetimes, different scenes of warrior, space, aquatic, earth, Asian, what appeared to be Asian. And I emotionally, as I was viewing each one of these, I emotionally was getting involved. I knew that what I was looking at was me in past lives. Now, I was 8 years old. I didn't know any of this. I had been born and raised a Catholic, you know, had the snot beat out of us, you know, all that stuff. But I knew, and I can't explain to you how I knew. It's just that, you know what you know. So I'm looking at these and I'm emotionally involved. And they explained to me that these were some of my past lives on earth. And I've been both the priest, the monk, the warrior, the bad guy, the saint, the holy man. I've been it all, okay? I've been it all. And so have you. Because earth is more or less a boot camp for the soul. You learn a great deal of experience here so that when you evolve in consciousness, we can take the lessons that we've learned in third density and take them home to our home star systems. Not only that, but you have the genetics as well. And from what I've been told, inside of our DNA, what science calls junk DNA, there is incredible information and knowledge and wisdom and the ability to develop technologies of a spiritual nature that we have no idea how to even tap into yet because of where we are. Okay? We're all holy people, in a sense. Sages, shamans. We all have the knowledge inside. It's just a question of how to tap into it. Is this okay? Okay. So these were some of the things that they were starting to share with me. Now, when this contact was over, and it had to be several hours, was over, they told me it was time to come back, and I didn't want to come back, only because it's not that I didn't miss my mom or my brothers and sisters. It was because if you have children, you know they would rather learn than eat. Well, I wanted to learn, okay? I mean, my whole perspective of everything just changed. And when I came back, I was on the grass. It was dusk. Everybody apparently had been looking for me, and I sat up and I ran back to where the picnic area was, where everybody was. My mother was extremely upset with me and said that they had been over there looking for me when I told her what happened. Anyway, I didn't tell her what had happened with Moronae and Vissaeus because she was still too mad about me not being there, okay? So I thought I'd wait, which I did. I waited until the next morning. And I told her, as she was working in the kitchen and in the living room, I was kind of following her around saying, you know, Mama, and telling her what had happened. She didn't take it well at all. She didn't take it well at all.